Yeah. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
Yo, what up, Headliner Nation? Kyle back with the Fantasy Headliners, and I am here with our Week 6 tight end start and sit matchups, breaking down every single game for you and which tight ends you should be relying on this week in your fantasy lineups. Now, we got 4 teams on a bye this week, so it's more important than ever with the byes now starting that we really hit our stride with these start and sit matchups. Let's take a look at our accuracy rating from last week. And last week, not too bad, 67%. There was, 3 guys that you see there on the screen. Njoku had a big game kind of out of nowhere. Parham scored a touchdown for the second straight week. Hayden Hurst, obviously with no Calvin Ridley. When I recorded the start sit video, Calvin Ridley was expected to play, then all of a sudden announced that he wasn't traveling, so that kind of messed with things. May have moved Hurst to a start, but it doesn't really matter. It's still a miss anyway. He got a little bit of extra last week, 67%. So this week we got to get it back up over 70. That's what we are shooting for. But before we jump into all the matchups, don't forget, you got to get in on this sweet October giveaway. Everything that you see here on the screen could be yours, but you don't even get a shot unless you sign up for a new account at Prize Picks. And even if you have an existing account, you're still going to be in the running here. So if you've created an account through Prize Picks and used the code word headliners and deposited $20, you're going to be in the running for this sweet, sweet giveaway. So make sure you go download their app. Make sure that you you can even head over to the website. Love the website. Looks great. Put some player props down for this coming week. And at the end of October, if you've done all of that, you could win this giveaway. But ladies and gentlemen, it's now time. Let's jump into it and kick things off with our Thursday night matchup. Tampa Bay at Philadelphia to kick things off on Thursday Night Football. This is going to be a really fun matchup. Rob Gronkowski was mentioned earlier in the week that he may be making a comeback and be available on Thursday night, but then yesterday it was said that more than likely he would not be, and I think officially listed as doubtful. I don't know if he's out yet, but we are going to go ahead and just rule him as out here. So that means OJ Howard, Cameron Brate, will either of these guys step up this week? I'm not betting on it with the wide receivers that they have there. For Philadelphia, though, Dallas Goedert just 2 days ago placed on the COVID list. Now, he could still potentially play on Thursday night. So we are going to have to keep an eye on this, but he would have to have back-to-back negative tests within 24 hours of each other, okay? I don't know, from what I have read based on the time frame, I don't know if people are really expecting him to play or not. So as of right now, I am moving forward under the assumption that there will be no Dallas Goedert Thursday night for this game. So Zach Ertz is going to be a start for me, and he is going to bring our Prize Picks prop to watch, going with the over of 44.5 receiving yards. Now, Zach Ertz, I talked about this last week. Did he have a good game last week? No, he did not. But he is running a route on 93% of passing plays. He is being utilized as a true receiving weapon. And with nobody in the passing game really making that big of an impact right now, last week was one of those weeks where Jalen Hurts was just off. He didn't have it. He didn't look good last week, but Zach Ertz still had a ton of targets last week, still running routes all over the place. Zach Ertz, for me, is still a really, really safe bet. And on Thursday night, if Dallas Goedert is out, he's got a nice ceiling as well. Miami at Jacksonville, and as of this time, Jacoby Brissett still anticipated to be the starter for Sunday. Again, Tua just started throwing on Monday. He has not officially been announced as returning or anything like that. So for right now, still moving forward under the impression that it will be Jacoby Brissett. And with that being said, Mike Gesicki will be a start for me this week. Not great last week. Another 7 targets though, and he has 18 targets over the last 3 weeks, which is second most among tight ends in the NFL. So the volume, hey, if you're a tight end and you're getting those type of targets, you got to be on our radar for our rosters, right? For the Jacksonville Jaguars, Dan Arnold will be a start for me this week. 8 targets last week, and I really think he could be one of the top targets on this team moving forward. I don't know what's going on with the wide receiver position right now. I don't know why they're giving Jamal Agnew and Tavon Austin more targets than Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault. But with all that being said, for Dan Arnold, Jacksonville clearly likes him. They gave up a pretty decent piece to bring him back in return. So we are going to go ahead and list Dan Arnold as a start. He was not a thing for the longest time for me, but ladies and gentlemen, I think it's official. Dan Arnold is a thing. Green Bay at Chicago is not going to bring a whole lot for me this week. With Robert Tonyan, he only has 1 week this season where he has double-digit receiving yards. So even if Tonyan were to have another decent week at some point in time, don't get sucked in. You have to follow the trends. Wrote about it in the draft guide this offseason. He just was propped up by a lot of touchdowns last year, and he's not getting those now. For the Chicago Bears, it hasn't happened yet with Cole Kmet. He's had some pretty decent matchups recently, but he's not getting targeted. So for me, I'm moving away for right now until we see more consistency out of him. Cincinnati is looking to go into Detroit and make up for a game that got away from them last week going up against Green Bay. CJ, who's your mama, could possibly score in this matchup, but I mean, only 2 targets last week after a huge Thursday night performance. And I mentioned it last week when I listed him as a sit. Don't buy into that one performance. We haven't seen those consistent performances from CJ Uzomah at this point. And with Ja'Marr Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins all healthy. Remember, CJ, who's your mama, his big performance was when T. Higgins was out. So now that T. Higgins is back, I'm just not expecting the targets to go his way. And for TJ Hawkinson, it's tough. It's tough. Why is it tough? Because he should be getting more targets than he is. And I have no idea why. I don't know if it's because he's banged up right now. I don't know if it's because Jared Goff just isn't looking his way. Cincinnati allows the 5th fewest points per game to opposing tight ends right now. I don't love it for TJ Hawkinson this week, but we know Detroit's going to be throwing it. We know we spent a lot of draft capital on him. We can't drop him right now. We just have to hope that maybe he's just banged up, and that's why it's taking so long. If you do have an opportunity to maybe grab, like if you were to say, I could play Zach Ertz over TJ Hawkinson this week, I probably wouldn't blame you, especially if there's no Dallas Goedert. So if you have another option that might present you a little bit more upside, I'm okay with that, but we still have to list TJ Hawkinson as a start, even if we continue to take the L's on it. Houston at Indianapolis. And for Houston, again, there's not going to be a whole lot we're going to in this matchup here. Pharaoh Brown, Jordan Akins, neither of these guys have done anything yet this season. For the Indianapolis Colts, Mo Alley Cox, Mo problems. I mean, didn't look too bad last week. All right. He didn't end up hitting as a start. I think he got 7.5 points is what he ended up getting. So we just barely missed on him being labeled as a start last week. And then Jack Doyle for me. Jack Mother and Doyle. Still just not enough going to these two guys right now. We saw a little bit of an uptick last week and a high passing attack going against Baltimore, having to throw the ball. Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell, Zach Pascal all got targets. Jonathan Taylor was utilized in a huge touchdown to start the game. Nyheim Hines is utilized in the passing game. There's just not a whole lot of consistency right now with these guys. The LA Rams and the New York Giants will bring my Manscaped must-watch matchup of the week. Don't forget, our friends over at Manscaped are gracious enough to be sponsoring us again this season. If you are on their website and you decide to purchase something, make sure you use code word headliners at checkout for 20% off and free shipping of all of your goodies. Make sure you go over there and check out what they have to offer. Thanks again to Manscaped. Now, for this matchup, you might be saying, Kyle, why would this be your Manscaped must-watch matchup for tight ends? Well, for me, it's about getting a couple of tight ends going that have the potential. So, for Tyler Higbee this week, unaspiring production the last couple of weeks. And to begin the season, I said, maybe not a guy with a ton of upside, but a guy that could be safe at times. Haven't really seen it as of late. However, the New York Giants do allow the 7th most fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends. And I talked about it in the wide receiver video about how the corners for New York, they can cause some problems, especially Adoree Jackson. Even in the slot, this secondary is pretty decent, okay? So, for me, for Tyler Higbee, okay, he could be an X factor for the LA Rams this week and for Matthew Stafford. Really utilize him going up against a defense that has given up some points, given up some production to tight ends. Get him going this week. You know how you got Robert Woods going last week, Sean McVay? Do me a favor. Get Tyler Higbee going this week. For the New York Giants, it's Evan Ingram, okay? Because every wide receiver, every pass catcher for this team is injured right now except for Kadarius Toney. So this is the perfect week to get Evan Ingram going, especially when it's a tough matchup like the Los Angeles Rams. Let's get the tight end position going. Barkley's hurt. Sterling Shepard's hurt. Kenny Galladay's hurt. Darius Slayton's hurt. Evan Ingram. This is his time. Yes, he can be as frustrating as hell, but get Evan Ingram going. There's no one else to catch any balls. Evan Ingram's got to be the ball catcher. KC at Washington, nice bounce back from Travis Kelce this week. And even though Washington doesn't allow a ton of points to tight ends, we're still smashing the start on Travis Kelce like always. And for Washington, Ricky Seals-Jones is going to be a start for me this week. I talked about him in the waiver wire video. KC has allowed the 4th most fantasy points per game to tight ends. And RSJ, as I like to call him, is coming off a game in which he had 8 targets, and they are also dealing with injuries with the pass catchers right now. Obviously, you've got J.D. McKissick there who could take over, but we know Antonio Gibson is dealing with an injury. Curtis Samuel is probably going to be out this week. Diami Brown, a guy who started the season and looked like he might have a little bit of juice to him. He was out last week. So what are we really going to get? Ricky Seals-Jones in a good matchup. I have to expect they're going to be utilizing him this week. Minnesota, Carolina, Tyler Conklin, maybe a little bit of touchdown upside for me this week, but just not enough of a floor to really excite me, okay? So I'm going to pivot elsewhere this week. Like I said, a Ricky Seals-Jones, kind of like that matchup. And on the flip side for the Carolina Panthers, we're seeing the tight ends maybe get a little bit more involved, right? Tommy Tremble last couple of weeks finding the end zone. Ian Thomas saw a decent amount of targets, not great, but it's not just enough. I mean, these tight ends just don't excite me right now. I like Tommy Tremble, but again, rookie tight ends, they don't typically produce consistently right away. The Chargers are going to head into Baltimore in what is expected to be one heck of an offensive matchup. So Jared Cook, talked about it the last couple of weeks, right? There's a few of you in the comments. We've gone back and forth on Jared Cook, and I see the comment, how can you disrespect Jared Cook? And listen, just like I said last week, right? I've said it every single week so far. Jared Cook coming off a big week. A lot of people, how could you sit him last week? Listen, there's not enough targets to go around for Jared Cook unless it's a matchup that really entices me. Austin Eckler's being utilized a lot. Mike Williams has taken that step forward. Keenan Allen is still an alpha wide receiver. All 3 of those guys, if they're averaging around 30 targets per game, there's just not enough targets left over to consistently go to Jared Cook. However, going up against Baltimore, a team that has allowed the 3rd most fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends, will get a start designation from Jared Cook for me this week. And for Baltimore, we're starting Mark Andrews. Huge game last week. I told y'all a couple of weeks ago, stay the course with him. He's going to end up being fine. He's finally producing. Andrews owners, congratulations. Arizona at Cleveland. Max Williams, we know, is going to miss some time. I don't think we've heard yet if he's going to miss the entire season, but it does not look good. It looks like Darrell Daniels is going to be the next get man up. He is the guy that is second on the depth chart right now, so I'm just going to stay away from it because they have more than enough pass catchers there at the wide receiver position to make up for it. So we're staying away from Darrell Daniels if he's even the guy. And then for the Cleveland Browns, man, Arizona allows the 2nd fewest fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends. I really wanted to fire up David Njoku this week, hoping that maybe last week was kind of a, hey, let's get this guy going again. Let's really utilize him. I mean, that is who he is. I mean, he is that type of a pass catcher. But I just can't do it. In a tougher matchup going up against Arizona, I think, again, we're going to see Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt really trying to keep the ball away from that Arizona offense as much as possible. And then Donovan Peoples-Jones, talked about him in the wide receiver video. Higgins and Beckham have tough matchups. I'd like to go for David Njoku, but this just is not a matchup that is speaking to me this week. Las Vegas at Denver. Darren Waller going to be a start for us, of course, and then Noah Fant will also be a start for us this week. Had him listed as a sit last week, hit on that one. The potential for this matchup, though, is just too much for me to sit Noah Fant this week. Las Vegas allows over 15 fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends, and the wide receivers are going to have a really tough matchup. Talked about it again in the wide receiver video. Over the last 2 weeks, Las Vegas has allowed the second fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. Over the last 4 weeks, the fifth fewest, and over the season, the sixth fewest. So they have actually gotten better against the pass than what they have really at this point against anything else. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Las Vegas. Obviously, John Gruden leaving. What's going to happen with the defense? I don't know all of that. But again, with the tough matchup for the wide receivers, Noah Fant, and the upside allowed with Las Vegas giving up over 15 fantasy points, we'll go with Noah Fant this week. Dallas at New England. Dalton Schultz is becoming just an absolute star every single week. The tight end 3 over the last 3 weeks. Beware, New England has allowed the fewest fantasy points per game this season to opposing tight ends, but that's not going to stop me from going to Dalton Schultz this week with the amount of volume he's been getting. And then Hunter Henry, he is becoming a favorite of Mac Jones, and boy, do I love to see it. Dallas allows over 15 fantasy points per game to the tight end position. Hunter Henry is now the number 2 running back or number 2 tight end on this team. We know Damian Harris is a little bit beat up. Obviously, Brandon Bolden has taken over some of the pass catching duties of James White, but he's not really that guy that is has been utilized and been comfortable in this offense that they can rely on. So Hunter Henry seeing a good amount of targets right now, and he's really establishing himself as the tight end in this offense. Seattle at Pittsburgh. Gerald Everett is going to make his way off the COVID list this week, and I am interested in him with Geno, but I got to see it first, all right? Is Geno Smith now going to be the starter for a while with Russell Wilson out? Is he going to utilize the tight end position a little bit more? This is something I want all of you to keep an eye on, because if he does, Gerald Everett or Will Dissly could be a guy next week that we are really, really trying to grab off the waivers. For Pittsburgh, though, Eric Ebron, Pat Freiermuth, doing nothing this season. Monday Night Football. Buffalo is going to head to Tennessee with my man Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox. Ooh, baby. Oh, my gosh. I love seeing it. I think I tell you all this. I think I tell all of you all of this all the time. I love Dawson Knox. I always have. It just worried me with all the pass catchers. That's why I wasn't a little bit higher on him this season. But when I saw the performance in week 2, I said, let's go. And then a couple of weeks ago, I also told you he might be taking over the Cole Beasley kind of area, kind of the target that Cole Beasley used to be. And it is happening. He is the tight end 3 on the season right now. 5 touchdowns over the last 4 games. A lot of points obviously being propped up at with the touchdowns right now. Those are going to regress a little bit at some point in time, but this is an offense that throws it. Dawson Knox is really becoming a safe bet every single week. And for Tennessee, Anthony Firkser, Jeff Swaim, going to sit both of them out. Even with Julio Jones missing time, even with A.J. Brown missing time 2 weeks ago, neither of them have done anything, so we're not going to go back to them now. All right, Headliner Nation, there you have it. My tight end matchups for the week done, out the door, ready to set your lineups. The rankings coming soon. Ladies and gentlemen, appreciate y'all tuning into this video. If you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, you got to hit that subscribe button and stick around. Make sure you hit the like button for me as well if you appreciate the content. And as always, leave me a comment down below if you have a matchup that you're really liking, if you have a matchup that you really hate, somebody that you're thinking about starting over another. The wide receiver or the tight end rankings videos will definitely help you out with that one. If you had somebody listed as a sit here, need some more, let's talk about it. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get out of here. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.
I'm a headliner.